Okay, picture this. It is 6:00 p.m. It has been one of those days. You know the kind I mean.
Oh, I do.
You've been in meetings that could have been emails, the coffee machine was broken, and now you're finally driving home. You turn onto your street, desperate for just 5 minutes of silence, and then you see it.
The neighbor.
The neighbor. He's blocked your driveway again. Or maybe it's the dog barking its head off for the 3rd hour in a row, and just like that snap, the peace is gone.
Yeah.
Your blood pressure spikes, you're gripping the steering wheel, and the whole evening feels ruined.
That instant, visceral spike of irritation. It's almost chemical, isn't it?
Totally. But then, contrast that with the golden day.
Right.
You hit every green light. You find a $20 bill in your old jacket. You finish that project early, and your boss actually says, good job.
Wow.
And suddenly, you feel like you could conquer a small nation.
You're floating.
Exactly. It's that constant oscillation. We swing back and forth between suffering, even if it's just a first world problem like a blocked driveway, and joy.
The universal human experience.
Yeah, it is. And that is exactly where we are starting our deep dive today.
We have a really fascinating piece of source material to unpack. It's a sermon, or really more of a devotional study, from Pastor Huji Kang, dated January 29, 2026.
Right?
And look, I know some listeners might be thinking, a sermon, is this going to be a theology lecture? But stick with us.
Yeah, because the mission today isn't just to summarize a religious talk. What we're really doing is exploring a specific psychological and spiritual framework for handling that oscillation we just talked about.
Right. The text centers on a reading from the book of James, specifically chapter 5. But the argument Pastor Hu makes is surprisingly practical.
It's about resilience, really.
It is. It's about whether you can maintain a steady state of mind when your external environment is jumping between chaos and calm. The source argues that things like prayer and singing aren't just rituals.
Not just things you do because you're supposed to.
Exactly. They are actually tools for emotional and circumstantial transformation.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. The source starts with a very simple, almost binary classification of human existence. It's from James 5.13.
It's deceptively simple. The text asks 2 questions. Is anyone among you suffering? And is anyone cheerful?
And the instructions just follow that flowchart. If you're suffering, let him pray. If you're cheerful, let him sing praise.
On the surface, that sounds almost too basic, right? Like an if this, then that algorithm for your emotions.
Totally. Sad, pray, happy, sing. Next problem.
It feels a bit like, thanks, I'm cured. But Pastor Hu digs a lot deeper than that. He points out that this instruction, it acknowledges a fundamental reality.
That life isn't static?
That's it. God balances life with moments of hardship and days of singing. You're never going to be in one state forever.
And here's where the nuance kicks in, because the source defines a mature Christian in a way that I think challenges a lot of our default assumptions.
Yeah, usually we think spiritual maturity is about how much theology you know, or how well-behaved you are.
Or how many volunteer hours you log.
Right. But Pastor Hu argues that a mature believer is defined by something else. The ability to sing during the suffering.
Okay, let's pause there. Because that sounds, well, it sounds a bit delusional. If I'm suffering, the last thing I want to do is sing.
Of course.
I want to complain. I want to fix the problem.
And that's the natural human reaction. Anyone can sing when the storm passes. That's easy. That's reactive joy. The sun is out, so I'm happy. But the argument here is that the internal spiritual life is revealed by your ability to sing while the storm is actually still raging.
So it's about disconnecting your internal state from your external circumstances.
Precisely. It's who are you when the pressure is on? And this leads us directly to maybe the most complex part of the source material, the nature of prayer.
Right. Because if the instruction is, if you're suffering, pray, what is the goal of that prayer?
Well, the obvious answer is to stop the suffering.
Yeah, if I have a headache, I pray for it to go away. If the neighbor is loud, I pray for them to move, or at least lose their voice.
Fix this, change my environment. But Pastor Hu offers a paradox here. He says, yes, prayer can remove suffering. That is a possibility. But that isn't the only goal.
And maybe not even the primary one.
Exactly. This is what you were calling the grace mechanism when we were prepping for this.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect term for it.
It is. The source explains that sometimes God doesn't change the environment. He doesn't remove the obstacle. Instead, he changes the person.
He gives them the grace.
The strength to endure the obstacle.
But here's the friction point for me, and I think for a lot of people. If I pray for the suffering to stop and it doesn't stop, isn't that just a no? Isn't that technically an unanswered prayer?
See, that's exactly the binary the source is trying to dismantle. We view prayer as a transactional request. I insert prayer, I get relief. But he's suggesting a second outcome.
Okay.
The environment remains hostile, but your internal capacity to withstand it is supernaturally expanded. The weakness is transformed into strength.
Okay, so you don't get a lighter load, you get a stronger back.
Exactly. And to prove this isn't just modern spin, the source uses two heavy-hitting historical examples. First, the Apostle Paul.
Paul is a huge figure in this context. The text mentions he prayed 3 separate times to have a thorn in the flesh removed.
We don't know what that was. It could have been anything. Bad eyesight, malaria, a specific enemy. Whatever it was tormenting him.
It was suffering. He wanted it gone.
And the answer he got wasn't, okay, he fixed it. The answer was, my grace is sufficient for you. God refused to remove the problem, but provided the power to exist with the problem.
Which is a tough pill to swallow. But then the source goes even bigger. It brings up the ultimate example, Jesus in Gethsemane.
And this is the emotional core of the argument. You have Jesus, the night before his crucifixion, praying so intensely he's sweating drops of blood.
He prays for the cup of suffering to pass. He essentially asks, is there any other way?
And the cup didn't pass.
No.
It didn't. He still had to go to the cross. Now, if we use our transactional definition, that was a failed prayer. He asked for relief and got death.
But that's not the argument here.
No. Pastor Hugh argues that the prayer was answered because he received the power to walk toward that suffering. The ultimate prayer, according to this framework, isn't fix this, but your will be done.
It really shifts the metric of success. It suggests that if you pray and the problem doesn't go away, you haven't necessarily failed.
Right. You might just be in that grace mechanism phase where you're being strengthened to handle it.
It's a very stoic kind of resilience, but framed through theology.
It is. It's not about ignoring the pain, but about finding a power source that is independent of the pain.
Speaking of pain, and let's bring this down from the high theology for a second, I actually loved the personal anecdote Pastor Hugh shared.
The trigger finger.
The trigger finger, yes. So we've been talking about the crucifixion and the Apostle Paul, and then suddenly the pastor's talking about how he has inflammation in his hand because he uses his phone too much.
It sounds trivial, doesn't it? But that's actually why it lands so hard. He talks about how, because he's answering emails and preparing sermons, he developed this condition where his finger locks up.
And it's painful, it's persistent, and treatments haven't fully fixed it.
Exactly. And it grounds the whole thing. Because honestly, most of us aren't facing a Roman execution today. We're facing back pain, or a chronic migraine, or RSI from typing. And he treats this stiff finger with the same spiritual weight as Paul's thorn. He refuses to just call it a medical annoyance. He reframes it.
He said he started to view this trigger finger as a reminder to avoid pride and to rely on grace.
I think it's important to note, and you made this point, he isn't saying don't go to the doctor.
Right, thank you for clarifying that. He explicitly mentions he sought treatment. He isn't encouraging medical negligence.
No. He's saying that when the doctor can't fix it immediately, or while you're waiting for the healing, how do you mentally cope?
You find meaning in the discomfort.
You turn a repetitive strain injury into a spiritual checkpoint.
That vulnerability leads to another layer the source touches on, which I think is fascinating. The isolation of the person giving the advice, the pastor himself.
This was a surprisingly raw section of the text. He discusses the weird relationship between the congregation and the clergy.
He observes that people usually only come to the pastor for 2 things. Huge miracles.
Look what God did, I got the promotion.
Oh, massive crises, my marriage is falling apart.
It's the extremes, the highlight reel and the blooper reel.
But there's a middle problem. The source asks us directly, have you ever thought about what the pastor does when he faces difficulties?
It points out that leaders are often left socially isolated in their own suffering because they are seen as the fixers or the spiritual giants.
People forget they have problems.
They have trigger fingers and family issues and bad days too.
It's a call to action, really. He's asking the listener to support their leaders, not just treat them as spiritual vending machines.
It creates a sense of reciprocity. If the community is supposed to support each other, that includes the guy holding the microphone.
So we've established that suffering happens, prayer gives grace, and even leaders struggle. But what does this look like in the wild? Outside the church walls.
Right.
Because it's one thing to have a theology of suffering. It's another thing to apply it when your boss is yelling at you.
And the source pivots to a classic story from the book of Acts to illustrate this. Paul and Silas in prison.
The primary case study for that singing in the storm concept.
Exactly. So, quick refresh for anyone who missed Sunday school. Paul and Silas are thrown in prison. They've been beaten, stripped, and locked in the deepest dungeon.
Their feet are in stocks, it's midnight, it's dark, likely damp, and they are in excruciating pain.
Logically, this is the moment for despair. They could be saying, we did so much work for God, why are we here? This is unfair.
If I were them, I'd be drafting a strongly worded complaint letter to management.
Me too, but they don't. They sing hymns, loudly.
And we have to acknowledge how insane that would look to an outsider. Imagine being the jailer. You're guarding these guys who are bleeding and chained up, and instead of screaming, they're harmonizing. It breaks the pattern.
Totally. And the source emphasizes the result. It wasn't just that they felt better. The jailer, the guy guarding them, was so shaken by their reaction.
And then the subsequent earthquake, of course.
Right. That he eventually gets saved. His entire family gets saved. And historically, this event essentially plants the church in Philippi, which was the first church in Europe.
So the argument is their reaction to suffering didn't just help them, it unlocked something for the people watching them.
Yes. And this is where Pastor Hugh makes a really sharp pivot to modern life. He connects a Roman prison to the office.
The office. The place where many of us feel in prison, let's be honest.
Right.
But he's not just talking about boredom.
No, he talks about mental suffering in the workplace. Specifically, the ethical isolation of a believer.
He gets specific here, which I appreciate. He mentions things like colleagues, gambling lottery pools, sports betting, or even petty theft and corruption.
Things that might seem normal to the culture of that specific office. Everyone does it. Don't be a prude.
And the source describes the social pressure, the feeling of being the odd one out because you refuse to participate.
You hold a higher moral standard, and that makes you weird. That makes you isolated.
And that isolation is a form of suffering. It's not physical chains, but it's social alienation.
And the source argues that just as Paul and Silas influenced the jailer through their reaction, your reaction to office politics serves as a witness.
So if you're the one not complaining, or you're the one maintaining integrity without being self-righteous, people are watching.
Yes. The source implies that your behavior in the prison of a toxic work environment is actually your testimony. It's about not succumbing to the complaint culture.
Which leads us to the final and maybe most practical point of this deep dive, the gratitude pivot.
Yes.
Because let's be real, most of us aren't in a Roman dungeon, and maybe we aren't even dealing with massive ethical dilemmas, we're just annoyed by traffic.
The source lists these modern grievances perfectly. Finding parking, traffic jams, rain, the neighbor's dog, unfinished work projects.
The daily grind.
The daily grind. But then he drops a reality check. He contrasts these complaints with the actual environment the listeners are living in. He calls it a blessed country and city.
He mentions specific things we take for granted. Water, electricity, the fact that you can just walk outside and there's a 7-Eleven.
It's funny that he mentions 7-Eleven specifically, but it's such a perfect symbol of modern convenience.
It really is.
You have access to food, drink, and services 24/7. He also mentions the MRT and buses public transport that is safe and convenient.
I laughed at the 7-Eleven mention initially, but he's right. His point is, we are focusing on the one missing parking spot and ignoring the miles of safe roads, the engineered drainage systems, and the electricity grid that got us there.
It's a vision problem. The source argues for a deliberate shift. The formula he proposes is more praise, less complaint, more love, less blame.
But why? Is this just think happy thoughts?
No, it goes back to the grace mechanism. You aren't changing the traffic jam. The traffic is still there.
Right.
But if you shift your vision to gratitude for the car, or the safety, or the fact that you aren't walking in the rain,
And the suffering of the traffic jam loses its power.
you transform the moment, you change the atmosphere of your car, your home, and your office.
So bringing this all together, we started with a simple verse. Pray when you suffer, sing when you're happy.
But we realized it's much deeper. It's about redefining what answered prayer looks like. It's about accepting grace to endure rather than just demanding relief.
We looked at the pastor's own struggle with his trigger finger, a reminder that everyone has thorns. And we looked at the loneliness of leadership.
We saw how Paul and Silas use singing as a weapon against despair, and how that applies to the modern ethical battles in our workplaces.
And finally, the challenge to pivot from complaining about parking to being grateful for the 7-Eleven.
It really challenges the idea that our circumstances dictate our mood. The source material is adamant. You have agency, you can choose to sing.
Here's a thought I want to leave you with, something that struck me as we were going through this. The source suggests that our reaction to suffering, whether it's a prison cell or just bad traffic, is actually a performance. Not a fake performance, but a demonstration for the world around us.
We are being watched by our kids, our colleagues, our neighbors.
Exactly. So if you treated your next minor annoyance, let's say that barking dog or a rude barista, as a star chart for your internal spiritual state, what would it reveal about you?
That's a powerful question.
Are you the person who crumbles and snaps, or are you the person who has found a way to sing?
That's the real test of maturity. Not what you know, but how you react.
It is. So as you head out into your week, whether you're facing a lion or just a really long line at the grocery store, try to find your song. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Take care, everyone.